Hi, my name is Margaret Hankins, and today I'm going to be building a fictional phylogenetic tree with some ink pens. So first, let's meet our contenders. Here we have a quill, pretty antique and outdated. Next up, we're going to have different ink pens, which we see here. We have a Uniball and a G2 Pilot. Next up, we're going to have some ballpoint pens. I have an NC State one and a random fitness one I got for free somewhere. And our last three are going to be some fine point marker pens. So let's figure out what our outgroup is first. And the reason we're finding an outgroup is because we're going to be making a rooted tree, all right, which means that there's a common ancestor, at least to begin with. But let's talk about it. What is an outgroup? An outgroup is an OTU that we know diverged earlier than the other groups, and an OTU is an operational taxonomic unit, which is just based on how different the DNA sequences are. But given that this is kind of a fictional scenario, we're not actually going to be calculating what those numbers are. So here's our quill. So because of the visuals, I'm not going to have camera on this slide. So what's next? Well, after the quill, I think the next logical step would be the development of ink pens. So what would this look like? Well, on top we have our outgroup, which is the quill right here. And then we have the development of our ink pens, which you can see are actually closely related because of the length of these branches. But here we are, we have our Uniball and our G2 Pilot pen. Well, what next? After the ink pens, I think the next advancement would be ballpoint pens. In fact, you could probably argue that ink pens and ballpoint pens developed around the same time. So what would that look like? Well, here we have our quill. And then next, from earlier, we have our two ink pens. We have our Uniball and our G2 right here. And then underneath that, we have our two different ballpoint pens, which you can see the length here is longer than here, meaning that these aren't as closely related as the ink pens are. All right, we're almost done. So the artists are obviously writing, I mean, not really, but now we have cool stuff like fine tip marker pens. Now we're going to start, let's get through these guys. We're going to start with our black marker pen, but then we're going to develop some colorful ones too, like this blue and green one. And as you can see, these are pretty closely related, and there's a common ancestor here. Now let's go over some terms. So anagenesis is just the development, well, the evolution of one species into another, which we can't actually see on this tree, but cladogenesis we can, which is the branching of one species into two species. We can see that here, here, and all the way down here. And internal nodes is just a node that has more than one branch, which is kind of all over this tree. So here, here, they're all over the place. Thank you so much for watching. All information was from our slides.